All right. Cheers and salutations. Welcome, one and all, to Americans Learn. My name is Kit, and this one is, well, hits close to home. Marines, that's the way you spell success. So, this was done by the Fat Electrician, and so I've heard some things. Apparently, our main host, and please, folks, support the original content creator. It's the right thing to do. It's the one thing to do. Please support the original content creator. Please support the original content creator. Hold on. Please support the original content creator. From what I heard, people were saying, like, hey, he was a little nervous doing this. He wanted to do it justice. And you know what? Here's what I want to say. All the stuff that we've checked out here for Americans Learn from the Fat Electrician have been fun, informative, well thought out videos. And yes, he has given plenty of due respect to the Marine Corps. And this is about a legend called John Basilone. And if you are a Marine, you know one of this guy as the legend. Hell, if here's the thing, old Chesty Puller better make a scene in this, or else we're gonna be fighting. Anyways, nonetheless, I'm really excited for this video. Of course, it's gonna be about the Marines. Hell yes, count me in all the time. I can't wait to see this video from the Fat Electrician. And again, checking out his content in the past really put a smile on my face, especially last year. Went through a lot of crazy stuff myself. And you know what? Everybody, here's the order of the day. Grab yourself a tasty snack and a tasty beverage, and let's check out this work of art from the Fat Electrician. I think right now it's already got 1 million views. Why isn't it at 20 million views? Make it happen today, right now. But this is this is going to be a great video. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So let's just enjoy this and play this video in a 3, a 2, and an uno.
I'm just going to level with you. I've been making YouTube videos for about 3 years now, and during that time, I've gotten recommendations for hundreds of thousands of different topics to do videos on. Some of them I've done, some of them I haven't gotten around to yet, some of them I'll never do because they don't interest me, and then there's another category of topics that I've actively avoided because, to be honest with you, they intimidate me because the stories are that incredible, and I'm worried that I'm not going to do them justice. This is one of those. Today we're talking about one of the greatest Marines of all time, an undefeated boxer with a 100% knockout rate and probably the greatest machine gunner to ever live, John Basilone.
A man so legendary that when you go in the Marine Corps, John Basilone's imperial sainthood energy is guiding you to glory.
He's easily one of the most recognizable and renowned warriors in American military history, and for good reason. He has received the Medal of Honor and the Navy Cross, and the only reason he got the Navy Cross is because they quit letting people get the Medal of Honor twice. And we're going to get to his incredible story right after a word from our sponsor. Yeah, babe, what's up?
Hey, I need a boombox.
Okay, I can go get you one.
Perfect.
All right, I'll go get it now. Love you.
Love you.
All right, bye.
Fun. The family that shops together stays together.
Hour later.
Where's that boombox that I asked for?
Oh, it's right here. I got it for you.
Yes.
What is this?
The boombox.
Yes.
No, I wanted something to play music with.
Oh, that kind of boombox. Yeah, I got this instead.
Okay, we'll go to the store and get me a boombox so I can listen to music.
Can I keep this one still?
I don't care.
This video is brought
That's a win.
to you by Delete Me. Okay, super simple business model. You give them money, they turn around and they make sure that online data brokers are not selling your personal information online. Okay, here's the deal. Pretty much anytime you use a free service on the internet and you click that little box that says, I agree to the terms and conditions, you've basically just agreed to allow them to harvest as much of your personal information as humanly possible. They then turn around and sell that to online data brokers, and that's how they can afford to offer you a free service. But when you have Delete Me, they go and they monitor all of these online data brokers for your personal information, and then if they find it, they submit all the opt-out forms on your behalf, so they have to take down and stop selling that information. So when you buy Delete Me, you're not actually buying anything, you're just buying your way out of all the negative consequences of all the free shit that you've already got. And because they continue to monitor those data brokers, you're buying yourself out of all the future negative consequences of all the free shit that you haven't even gotten yet. So if you want to give Delete Me a try, there's going to be a link and a discount code down below. Let's get back to the video.
First of all, I use Delete Me. I use the Fat Electrician's code. No, I'm not sponsored or anything like that, but I've mentioned this before. I signed up just for giggles and laughs, and then it got serious. And boy, I'm glad I'm protecting myself. So there you go. Look, the internet can be a beautiful place, but protect yourselves at all time. Marine Corps orders.
John Basilone was born on November 4th, 1916 in Buffalo, New York, and spent his entire childhood growing up in Raritan, New Jersey. He was the sixth of 10 children with 2 older brothers, and both of his parents were first-generation immigrants that had just moved here from Italy. And like pretty much all World War II vets that we've ever talked about, he grew up in poverty during the Great Depression. Despite that, his father truly believed that America was the greatest place on earth. It was the land of opportunity, and he instilled that in all of his kids. Growing up with 2 older brothers in New Jersey, John got really tough really quick as a kid. He was extremely stubborn. He rode that line between bravery and stupidity with everything he did, and he was not particularly good at school. He could never pay attention in the classroom, but he excelled at anything athletic, and he never shied away from a fight. When he was 7 years old, he famously decided that he was going to make a 1,000-pound bull that had nearly killed 3 grown men previously his pet.
So bull.
Well, hey, before anyone says, "Oh, that's typical Marine behavior," maybe the bull wants to be his friend, you know? You never know. It could be like a fun Disney movie for the whole family. This isn't going to be well.
Strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
So
Yes.
7-year-old John, with zero fear in his body, hops in this pen with this bull and goes to pet it. The bull charges him. He dodges it. The bull charges him again. He dodges it again. And finally, the bull just kind of squares up with him. And John slowly walks up to this bull. And right as he's about to place his hand on the bull's head, right between his horns, the bull rears down and launches John 20 feet through the air, and he lands flat on his back.
Well, it was a bold stratagem and tactic. 80% successful.
Luckily, John makes it out of the pen okay. Needless to say, that bull did not become his pet, but it goes to show that he is either gifted with an extreme amount of bravery or stupidity, and only time is going to tell which one it is. Now, around this same point in his childhood, John and his brothers end up going to the local movie theater, and they watch a movie about a boxer. And this movie inspires John and his 2 older brothers to all want to become boxers, but the problem is there's no boxing gym in Raritan. He can't afford any boxing equipment, so the 3 brothers just start trying to mimic the training from the movie. They all start jumping rope. The problem is they don't have jump ropes and they can't afford it, so they start jumping rope with a clothesline. They started chopping wood with an old rusty axe they found. They start doing
They're doing Rocky Balboa training, like from Rocky 4, which is by far my personal favorite of the Rocky films, okay? Rocky 4, the movie that won the Cold War.
focus mitt drills with their bare hands because they can't afford any equipment. And this goes on for the rest of his childhood. Academically, John struggles in the classroom, and at school, he's not very popular either. And it's not that he's dumb. He can do everything. He can read, he can write, he can do math. He just can't stand sitting there for 6 to 8 hours a day looking at a chalkboard and some teacher droning on. He would zone out, and then next thing he knows, the bell would ring and class would be over, and he didn't pay attention to any of it. Because of this, after he graduates from 8th grade, he informs his parents that he is not going to be attending high school, and he's going to go out and get a job and start contributing to the family. Because he's 14 at the time, there's not a whole lot of jobs that he can do, so he gets the first one he can get his hands on, and that is being a caddy at the local golf course. And at first, John absolutely loves it. He's outside, he's moving around, he's earning money to help his family. All these rich businessmen are giving him these huge tips because he does such a great job. And when he's not hauling golf clubs, he's hanging out at the golf course clubhouse with all these rich businessmen, and they end up teaching him how to gamble, and he gets really good at that, and he starts
Very good. He's learned the inside ropes, how to play cards. For fun, not for gambling, for fun. What makes you think he's learning how to gamble? It's like the Marine Corps has like some stereotypes surrounding it. Shame on you. Anyone that thinks that way.
making money doing that too. And this goes on for years, and as John turns 16 and then eventually 17, it's getting to the point where he can go out and get a real job. And John absolutely hates the notion of it. He resents the fact that society is telling him he has to go out and get some monotonous 9-to-5 job that he just has to do every single day for the rest of his life. In his mind, it's going to be just like sitting in that classroom, zoned out, and John doesn't know what to do because that's not what he wants in life. Not knowing what to do, John goes to his church and he's praying about it. He's just sitting there, he's hanging out, he's thinking about what he wants to do for the rest of his life. While he's there, a Catholic priest by the name of Father Russo comes up and starts talking to John. You know, he's clearly troubled, wants to know if he can help. And John ends up asking Father Russo, that he's known pretty much his entire childhood, like, hey, Father, you know, you were an athletic guy, you were in college, you could have been a doctor, you could have been a professional athlete, you had the whole world at your fingertips. How did you decide that you wanted to become a priest? And Father Russo told him that he just felt a calling, that that's what he was supposed to do. So he did it. And he told John that if he listened, God would probably give him a calling too. So John takes that advice and he's trying to listen or look out for any sign that maybe God's going to give him. And then one day he has what he describes as a vision that he's supposed to become a warrior. And because of this, John...
All right. Hey, wait a minute. Oh, that's right. He served in the army first. That's right. That's right. Don't worry. He's going to join the big boys club very soon.
John joins the United States Army in 1934. Now, the problem is John doesn't really know what he wants to do in the Army, but he knows that his calling is to be a warrior, so he wants to be the biggest, baddest, most untouchable warrior on the battlefield, which is obviously being inside of a tank.
Best job I ever had.
The problem is that John thinks that being cooped up inside of a tank is going to be just like sitting inside that classroom, and he absolutely hates the notion. He wants to be outside, moving around, doing things that are physical, so he picks the next best thing on the battlefield, a machine gun. And this suits John for multiple reasons. One, he's kind of a bigger guy by the standards of the day, right? He's 5'9", but he's 185 pounds with almost no fat on him. And on top of that, he's been doing nothing but lugging around golf clubs for the past 4 years, giving him a ton of stamina, which is good news because he's going to need it, because the machine gun back in 1934 was the Browning 1917, which was a fucking machine gun that required 7 quarts of water to cool the barrel down.
I remember this. I checked out, I think, Bran Herrera's video about, oh geez, I forget what year it was, but this type of machine gun being used. So there you go. That was a fun, informative video because it was fun, because it was a machine gun. It need water, H2O.
Between the gun and the tripod, the entire thing is 103 pounds, not including the ammunition. And John is absolutely obsessed with this gun. He knows absolutely everything about it. He knows where to place it on a battlefield, how to set it up, how to clear every different type of malfunction. They have competitions on how to disassemble and reassemble it and run a functions check completely blindfolded, and John wins those competitions every single time.
That's pretty freaking badass.
After finishing his training, John gets shipped out to the Philippines, and he spends the next 3 years there between 1934 and 1937, and it kind of fucking sucks the entire time. Now, at this point in time, the geopolitical climate is absolutely heating up, and war could break out, and if that war breaks out, John is obviously here to defend the Philippines. And as far as John can tell, if war should break out, the Army's only plan is to have all of its troops retreat to a tiny island called Corregidor and try to hold that. Now, this is extremely...
Don't worry. With luck and dedication, the Marines take back the Philippines. Take that, MacArthur. Take that.
disheartening to the point that it pisses John off, because remember, he's here to be a warrior. That's his higher calling in life. And now he's over here in the Philippines. It's hot. Everything's fucking wet all the time. There's fucking bugs everywhere. He's getting malaria. Everybody else is getting malaria. And he's sitting here just suffering, basically waiting for war to break out. And then when the war does break out, the first thing they're going to do is retreat. That's not what he signed up for. So this bothers John all the way down to his core the entire time that he's there. Despite that, he tries to make the best of it, which is really hard at times, because it's very clear to John that the Army either doesn't give a fuck about him or just doesn't have the funding to take care of him the right way, because they have basically nothing while they're there. They're living in these tiny little huts. They have very little supplies. They're literally having to eat goat half the time, which John said was absolutely disgusting. And on top of that, John,
unless you get Chef Ramsay to make it for you, then goat will taste great.
Absolutely hates the rainy season in the tropics because he cannot stand the wool army socks when they get wet on his feet. It drives him absolutely insane. It bothers him so much that it becomes a well-known thing in his unit that when you're gambling against John Basilone, he is willing to accept dry cotton socks as currency to gamble with when you play against him, which is pretty much all he does the entire time that he's there. He's either sleeping, drinking, gambling, or trying to bang the locals like everybody else. He actually
Hey. That's an unfounded rumor. They're just taking them all to Bible study, the ladies, okay? Hey. Hush.
Actually ends up falling in love with a local woman by the name of Lolita that he describes as the most beautiful woman in the world. So much so that he actually gets her name tattooed on him. The constant drinking and gambling gets old after a little while, so he decides that he's going to start training to box again. So he gets back to running, jumping rope, starts sparring with any other army guy that's willing to spar with him, and then eventually he ends up taking his first fight in the army for boxing. Takes his first match, goes in there, knocks the guy out in the first round, takes another match, knocks him out too. After a little while, he is the best boxer in his unit, and then he goes and competes, becomes the best boxer in the army, and then he goes, competes again, knocking out the Navy's champion, becoming the best boxer in the U.S. military. Around this point in time, he ends up
Again, that's very good. These are all good things.
getting the nickname Manila John, and all the promoters back home hear about this badass over in the Philippines knocking everybody out. So he's getting letters from all these boxing promoters wanting him to come over and fight their pro champion over here, this pro guy over there. Basically, he's got a really good professional boxing career lined up the minute he goes back home. Eventually, he ends up beating everybody in the United States military, 19 wins, 19 knockouts, at which point he can either just wait and go back home and turn pro, or he can go up a weight class. He doesn't really want to do either, and his enlistment is coming to an end. John decides that he does not want to go up a weight class. He definitely does not want to re-enlist in the army because these past 3 years have fucking sucked. And he doesn't want to go back home and become a pro boxer because he doesn't think that that's the warrior calling that he had from his vision. So John finishes up his enlistment in 1937 and goes back home and moves in with mom and dad all over again. And he is right back at square one, not knowing what to do with the rest of his life.
It's all right. We've all been there before. We've all been there at some point.
He goes right back to being a caddy at the golf course, and at this point, mom and dad are getting worried because, I mean, he's a 21-year-old man, and this is the 1930s. He should be having kids by now, and he's over here working some part-time high schooler job. He needs to go and get a real job and make something of himself and start building a family. And while nobody's saying it out loud, John feels that constant pressure both from his family and his community, and he just doesn't know what to do. So he basically just goes back to what he was doing in the Philippines, right? He's carrying golf clubs during the day, he's gambling, he's drinking, and he is fucking everything that moves. You gotta realize he's the 21-year-old army veteran that just got back from the military. He's 185 pounds, built like a brick shithouse with 19 knockouts. He's seen as a very eligible bachelor by all the young ladies in town. So he's doing stuff with them. He's even banging the old widow that runs the flower shop down the street.
Well, I mean, hey, the old widows need some banging too. He's just banging the boards to make sure that the warehouse is functionally sound. It's almost as though there's a stereotype surrounding us Marines, eh? I'm tired of it. He was only helping out. That's it. I say that as an unofficial lawyer type person.
Not kidding. So that's going on for a while. Then eventually his dad confronts him like, Johnny, what the fuck are you doing with your life? You need to get your shit together. So John is like, I know. So he goes, he gets a real job. He ends up being a delivery guy for a laundry service. He does that for a couple of months. Fucking hates every single second of it. But now mom and dad are proud of him. You know, he's gone out in the world. He's got a real job. He's doing the whole, family thing. Soon he'll probably get a wife, settle down, have kids, do what, you're supposed to do. He doesn't make it there very long. He ends up quitting because he just can't stand to do it. His parents are super disappointed right out of the gate, at which point John is like, I'm going to move out. I'm going to go somewhere else. I'll go out on my own. So he moves to a different state, gets a job with the gas company. So he does that for like 6 months. He becomes one of the top employees at the company. He's getting along fine. He does the work really well, but he absolutely hates it. He doesn't feel like he's fulfilling his higher calling. And around this point in time, all the news is coming out about the massacre at Nanjing, Japan invading China, killing hundreds of thousands of innocent civilians. There's stories coming out about Japanese officers beheading innocent Chinese civilians until their arms are so fatigued that they can no longer lift up their swords. And this bothers John to his core because even though his time in the army wasn't great and he hated it the entire time, he still considered himself a professional and did not understand why another professional military would do that to innocent civilians. And with this, John has his second vision, basically a more clear version of his first vision. He is supposed to be a warrior, but he is supposed to fight the Japanese. And with this, he decides that he is going to re-enlist in the United States military, but this time he's not going with the army. He told his mother, and I quote, "The army's too soft, Ma. I'm going with the Marines."
Marines. That's the way you spell success. And before I see anyone type in crayons or anything else, sorry, boys and girls, that ain't going to apply this time. Are you sweeping? Because my man, John Basilone, he's sweeping straight to the Marine Corps. USMC style. All right? That's what he's going to do. So Semper Fidelis, MFers. Fine Marine. Goddamn
So
right.
in July of 1940, at the age of 20,
Goddamn right.
John Basilone joins the United States Marine Corps. And you got to realize, at this point in time, John is 23 years old, and there's a draft going on. So pretty much everybody else that he's going through training with is some 18-year-old snot-nosed kid. And John is just... he's getting through it. So he crushes basic training, goes off to machine gunner school for the Marine Corps, and while he's there, he just starts hustling all of his classmates. He sits there and very loudly and very vocally expresses frustration in his inability to disassemble and reassemble the machine gun, which obviously he knows how to do extremely proficiently, but he plays it off like he can't. And then he suckers other young, cocky Marines in to a challenge of assembling and disassembling it and running a functions check, and whoever wins money. And then as soon as
Yeah, of course, because he pretends to be stupid, and then he gets that money. But he's not gambling.
they put money on the table, he just takes everybody's shit, including their socks.
4 in a row. You know something? This is like the luck of the Irish, only I'm not Irish, so you figure it out.
So he gets done with training. He's older. He's more mature. He already knows everything. Very quickly, he ends up becoming a gunnery sergeant. He's in charge of 11 other men and 2 machine guns. And he takes being a leader very seriously. He makes all the men in his section train and retrain over and over and over again with the machine gun, how to set them up, where to set them up, absolutely everything, to the point that they are just as good as he is. Then they end up getting shipped out to Puerto Rico for amphibious landing training. He's back in the tropics, absolutely hates it. Everything's wet. His feet are wet. His socks are wet. There's fucking bugs everywhere. He doesn't like it there. He ends up training there for an entire year. And as per usual, when he's not training, they're going out, they're gambling, they're drinking, and they're fucking everything that moves.
They're playing Go Fish. They're drinking soda pop, and they're just taking the ladies to Bible study. That's what's happening. Anything else said otherwise is a smear and a slander. Defamatory, dare I say it.
At this point in time, he becomes kind of infamous for every time he gets hammered, he turns his hat, also known as a piss cutter, sideways to let everybody know, hey, I'm fucking hammered. So after a year, they get done.
Or it's a symbol of, hey, let's have some fun, guys and gals.
With training, they're just waiting on orders on where they're going to go. Paris Island is apparently full, so according to the rumors, the U.S. military has went out and built an entire new base for the Marines, and this base is fucking awesome. There's a new movie theater, there's an athletic facility, there's a new chow hall that serves steak.
Oh, no, I know where this is going to go. Hey, look. You know what? I served 4 years in the Marine Corps. But know for a fact, because I've gone through stuff like this before. Not in such a grand scale as John Basilone, but hold on. Hey, guys, we built this nice spot. There's this great thing here. There's going to be a lot of good chow over here. There's going to be all good stuff here. Nice living conditions here. Look at this right here. This shiny little stuff over here. This good stuff over there. And then... oh, I'm sorry. Here's some bread and water. And here's a hut. Shut up. I just know where this is going to go. Oh, yeah, we made a movie theater. Hold on. Let's listen to this again. Already. This is how you know this is BS. All right? Right here.
Everybody know, hey, I'm fucking hammered. So after a year, they get done with training. They're just waiting on orders on where they're going to go. Paris Island is apparently full. So according to the rumors, the U.S. military has went out and built an entire new base for the Marines. And this base is fucking awesome. There's a new movie theater. There's an athletic facility. There's a new chow hall that serves steak and lobster and cake and ice cream every single day for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Everybody is fucking pumped because they've been hanging out in the tropics where it sucks, basically living in tents. And now they're finally going to go and get appreciated for the elite fighting unit that they are. So,
and if I'm correct on this, it's gonna be, oh yeah, we'll get to that like in 5 years. We'll build all that.
So they get shipped out, they travel, they make it all the way to New River, North Carolina, where the new base is, and they get there. There's nothing there. There's like a couple of buildings for the officers, and then it's just a fucking swamp. They have no mission. There's no training schedule. They're literally just existing, living in tents in a swamp. Because at this point in time, America isn't in the war yet. So basically, they're one of the most highly trained units that America has, but they have nowhere for them to go. So they basically just like set them off to the side and told them to go camp in a swamp for a while. And it sucks the entire time. So they're there for a couple of months, and then they get word that they're going to a different new base. And this base surely is the base they were originally talking about, right? With the chow hall and the steak and the lobster and the cake and the ice cream and the...
No. No. No.
The athletic facility and the new barracks. Everything's going to be awesome. The new base is actually ready. They ship out. It's a very short drive. They come to this new place, Camp Lejeune. Also, no
Camp Lejeune, right outside a little place called Jacksonville, North Carolina. I lived there for a good 3.5 years. Had some fun. I don't think I'd ever want to go back to Camp Lejeune, okay? North Carolina, I love you. I truly do. I love you, North Carolina. With all my heart. All my heart. But North Carolina ain't a whole lot of fun. Neither was Jacksonville. Well, sometimes. Sometimes it could be fun, all right? Sometimes it could be fun. Sometimes. Not all the time. Sometimes. So there you go. Camp Lejeune. What's there?
buildings, just a fucking swamp.
Is it close?
Very.
So now morale amongst the men is at an all-time low. It absolutely sucks. John is trying to do everything he can to keep spirits up. He makes it standard practice that everybody under his command is going to learn boxing. He's going out, he's teaching his men how to box. The circus in town actually donates their old tent and they set it up, and that becomes their new like Madison Square Garden. He's hosting fights. Boxing is like the only thing they have. But John doesn't really have any interest in boxing himself, and after the word got out that he's Manila John with 19 knockouts, not a lot of people wanted to box him anyways, so it works out. But there has been several occasions where a card game went wrong and he got into a fight and knocked a couple of people out. And then they get a new commander that apparently is a badass, and one of
If this is who I think it is, well, first of all, you better square yourselves away right now, or he'll rip off your head and crap down your neck. Oh, yeah.
the first things this commander does is calls John Basilone into his office. Okay, this cannot be good. John is nervous. This guy is allegedly a hard ass. He's supposedly one of the most decorated men in the U.S. military at this point in time. He's got 2 Navy crosses. He's already served in Nicaragua. He served in the Banana Wars, and now John has to go talk to him, and he doesn't know why. So John walks into his office, and this guy is intimidating. He is built like a brick shithouse. He looks like a refrigerator with a smaller refrigerator on top of it, and that's his head. This dude's got the biggest barrel chest he's ever seen. His side profile is 2 feet thick. It's starting to make sense why this guy's nickname was Chesty. Yeah, John's new commander is the
Hold on. You gotta stand up for this. Guys, still stay in the camera. That's the guy. The main man. The one guy who's gonna get things done. Chesty Puller. That's him. The boss man, okay? I'd always sometimes say the ghost of Chesty Puller guides us on this day. And whatever you do, listen, a little bit off topic, not related, but to any future servicemen or women, especially those who serve in the Marine Corps, shout out to you because you guys are going to be number 1 in my book. In your MREs, I don't know if they still do them or not, do not eat charms. Charms are a cursed candy. You must destroy it immediately, throw it away, break them apart, throw them in the sewer. Throw them in the garbage can. Step on them if you must. Do not eat charms, okay? The ghost of Chesty Puller will not protect you if you eat that stuff. Charms are bad. A little bit of a just letting you guys know. Do not eat charms. It has nothing related to this video. Just want to throw that out there. Got to keep the old school superstitions alive because when you eat charms, bad things happen. They do.
legendary Marine, Chesty Puller. And Chesty lays into him immediately, like, I understand you knocked some people out after a card game. And he's like, yes, sir. And he goes, I understand you're some type of knockout artist. And he's like, yes, sir. I was 19-0 over in the Philippines when I was in the Army. Chesty at this point flips out. The Army? You were in the fucking Army?
You getting soft, brother?
Now, obviously, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but this conversation went something along the lines of, why don't you explain to me why I would let somebody softened by the United States Army lead my Marines into combat? I have heard nothing but bad things about you, John. You are a gambling womanizer that would sleep with 2 women at a time if you could afford it. At which point, John responds, and I quote, even when I can't afford it, sir.
But taking him to Bible study.
Which point Chesty cracks a smile and says, God damn it, you're going to make a fine Marine. Pull up a seat. They have a cigar together and start drinking. And then Chesty has John tell him all about the Philippines. Yeah, John Basilone is now homies with the most decorated Marine of all time.
As he should be. Okay? I approve of this. Okay? That's just, it is what it is. Chesty Pullers, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Hey, Fat Electrician, 10 out of 10. Life-changing video. I love this. The fact that it's got 1 million views, fantastic. And I know his channel's at like, what, 1.44 million subscribers right now. This video should be at 10 million views. It should be.
Shortly after this, Japan attacks Pearl Harbor. They've committed the cardinal sin. They've fucked with America's boats. It is now game on. At this point in time, John's unit is one of the most highly trained units in the United States military, and they are immediately shipped out to Samoa on their way to the Pacific for more training. They spend about 4 months there. They train a bunch on amphibious landings, but they also train on jungle warfare, trying to focus in on what they know the Japanese like to do. They know that the Japanese like night fighting, so they get a bunch of nighttime combat training, and then they know that the Japanese also like to infiltrate behind enemy lines and pretend to be one of your guys and then murder you in your sleep. So they develop a new system on how to make sure that somebody out in the darkness is actually one of your guys. Now, the tricky part is you need to make sure that both members in this communication are both on the same page and they both know that they're not going towards an enemy. So you're going to shout out one word and they're going to respond back with another word that's the password. And the words that they choose are weather and clear, because apparently you can't say those words with a Japanese accent.
Clear? Clear? Clear. 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 Clear.
You know what? This is funny. And before anyone says anything, yes, look, I have family in Japan, okay? And my family's been in Japan numerous. In fact, boy, like my family being associated, living in Japan, knowing people in Japan, it's been going on since my great-grandfather's been alive. It's an interesting story. It's a very interesting and fascinating story. But perhaps someday, not today, I'll talk more about it.
They get done training, then they're just told to board a ship. They're not even telling them where they're going. They get out to sea after like 2 days once it's no longer a security issue, and they tell everybody over the loudspeakers, we're headed to Guadalcanal in the Pacific. There's an airfield there that we have to take and defend. Now, John is going to kind of be in the second wave. He is not there when the Marines make their first landing on Guadalcanal on August 7th, 1942. Now, those Marines experience very little resistance at first, and then 2 days later on August 9th, the Japanese Navy rolls in on the naval detachment that had dropped off the Marines, and they attack them at night and catch them completely off guard, and they end up sinking 4 American cruisers, and the entire naval detachment is forced to retreat, stranding the Marines on Guadalcanal. So for about that first week, the Japanese Navy just shells the Marines with naval gunfire and then tries to starve them out. The first major battle is on August 20th at the Tenaru River, when 800 Marines go toe-to-toe with 900 Japanese, killing 800 Japanese and only losing 44 Marines in return. After this, the Japanese realize 2 things. A, they're going to have to up their game if they want to go toe-to-toe with the Marines, and B, Henderson Airfield is apparently very important to the United States war effort, and they have to take it back no matter what. Henderson Airfield has a ridge right next to it today that's known as Edson's Ridge because it was defended on September 12th by Edson's Raiders. Edson's Raiders is comprised of 840 Marines that go toe-to-toe with 3,000 Japanese soldiers led into battle by Major General Kiyoji Hayotake Kawaguchi. Utilizing the high ground and effective machine gun fire, Edson's raiders absolutely crushed Kawaguchi's men. Over the course of 3 days, the Marines lost 31 men and killed over 600 Japanese soldiers and wounded at least 600 more. To the Japanese, this was considered the first major defeat of their ground forces in over 2,000 years and brought immeasurable shame to that chain of command.
Yeah, well, you know, hey, left hook, right hook. You're going to take on the Marines. You better be ready.
General Kawaguchi is immediately relieved of command, and his boss, General Hayotake, takes control, and it becomes his life's mission to win back Henderson Airfield to restore his honor. By August 18th, the United States Navy is able to punch through, and John and the rest of the 7th Marines show up to reinforce the Marines on Guadalcanal. Over the course of the coming days, they offload all of the 7th Marines onto Guadalcanal, but on September 23rd, before all of the Marines have disembarked from their ships, they get ambushed at the Medicao River. Chesty Puller, hearing that some of his men are cut off and surrounded, commandeers the United States naval destroyer, the USS Ballard, takes it under his command, gets it as close as he can to their position, and calls in the naval gunfire on the enemy himself. He then loads up all the landing vessels that he has with as many Marines as he possibly can and begins leading them into the fight to save his men. And Chesty is right there leading from the very first Higgins boat, and it gets so bad from enemy gunfire coming in on these Higgins boats that the naval coxswain, the pilot of the ship, goes and starts turning the boat around, and all—
Oh, no. We are not going to have that reenactment. Okay. If any one of you remember Beavis and Butthead's neighbor, you know, the guy who sounds like Hank Hill, he would sometimes tell his war stories, and he told one war story where he, like, turned the naval vessel around because the paint wasn't on it properly. Yeah, that ain't going to happen if Chesty Puller's there, okay?
all the other boats are going to start following, at which point Chesty orders him to keep going, and he fights him on it, and Chesty pulls out his Colt 45 and says that he will shoot him himself if he doesn't steer that fucking boat to that beach. Chesty lands, goes out, saves his men, and to be clear, John wasn't there during the actual battle, but he saw all of this unfold, he heard about it, and it reinforced everything that he thought and knew in his heart, that if he wanted to be a good leader, he had to lead from the front and be willing to risk himself for his men. So all the Marines get out on Guadalcanal. The biggest objective in the war right now is defending Henderson Airfield. This is the most important stretch of land on the planet at this point in time. So John and his 11 men are set up on this ridge right outside Henderson Airfield. They have 2 foxholes, 1 machine gun team in each, and they are covering a 2,500 yard
fighting holes, not foxholes. Fighting. Foxes hide, Marines fight
span of the Marine front line, and they absolutely cannot allow the Japanese to get past it. On October 23rd, General Hayotake, who, remember, feels that he has been shamed by allowing his subordinate to lose to the Americans for the first time in 2,000 years, he is willing to die to win this fight, and he sends all the men that he has directly towards the Marine Corps' front line, and hundreds of them are headed directly towards John Basilone and his 11 men. The Japanese soldiers headed towards John and his men were covered in leaves for camouflage, and there were so many of them that Basilone's men said it looked like the jungle itself was coming to eat them. And while that is horrifying, you have to remember that John and his men have 2 heavy machine guns with overlapping fields of fire and the high ground. It's going to take a literal army to uproot John and his men. John and his men start mowing down wave after wave of Japanese infantry, and they just keep coming because they are under the command of General Hayotake, and this man is willing to die to win his honor back, and he's willing to sacrifice all of his men as well. Not only are John and his men metaphorically stacking bodies, they're literally stacking bodies to the point that it actually becomes a legitimate problem.
Let's see. Yes, that's correct. They're laying all around our guns. We had to change the guns because I had my mounts low. And, oh, wow. Oh, jeez. Lot of dead bodies.
John has to get out of the foxhole and push over
fighting hole
of dead corpses because they're beginning to obstruct the view from his machine gun positions. They fight for hours, mowing down wave after wave of enemy, and by the end of the first day, John has lost 4 men and killed who knows how many Japanese in return. On the second day, they still weren't able to get past Basilone and his men, but they were able to punch through the Marine Corps line on John's right flank, and they surrounded John and his men. Okay, so at this point, on one hand, this is a horrible situation to be in, but on the other hand, this is exactly the type of shit Marines are into, okay? This is what they call a target-rich environment, and now that they're surrounded, the enemy doesn't have anywhere else to go but to fight him. This is exactly what they want. The only problem now is that the rest of the force is cut off from him, so he can't get any more ammunition or water for the guns, and to make things worse, he's been fighting for so long, his fucking wool socks are wet. So at this point, John's
wet wool socks. You want to get a Marine angry? Give him wet socks.
like, fuck it, I'm gonna go get the ammo myself. He takes off his boots, he takes off his wet wool socks, grabs a machete and his Colt 45 1911, and takes off through enemy lines to go get more ammunition and water for his men. John not only makes it through the enemy lines barefoot, he actually gets more ammo, more barrels, and more water for the guns, and makes it back to his men. And over the course of the next day, he does this 2 more times. John and his men continuing to fight the entire time, mowing down scores of enemy soldiers. But slowly, John starts losing more and more men. First it was 4, and then 2 more, and then he's lost 8 men, and then suddenly it was down to John and just 2 others. At this point, they had to improvise new tactics. They didn't have enough men to man 2 heavy machine guns. So John became the gunner, trying to make every single last round count. And then when John ran out of ammo on one gun, he would hop over to the other gun while his 2 men reloaded and refitted that initial gun, and they would just bounce back and forth, fighting as long as they possibly could. This goes on for hours, and John and his men can't keep up. John would burn through all the ammunition in one machine gun before the next gun was ready. So John had to engage the enemy in hand-to-hand combat at their foxhole to buy his men more time to get the guns up. And then that goes on for hours. John Basilone kills 38 enemy soldiers at or in his foxhole in close quarters combat, buying his men more time. And
I didn't want to interrupt, but my God, this is how legends are made. But also, we have heard this story so many times. I mean, it still motivates my heart to this very day. The fact that he did all of that for his men and didn't give up. Impossible odds, and John Basilone pulled it off. Semper Fi, brother. Semper Fidelis.
just as things are starting to look really, really dark, like this is going to be the end, dark, we're almost out of ammunition, we can't keep doing this, Chesty Puller comes through again, rallies the Marines, pushes back the Japanese forces, and restores the initial line. Over the course of the entire battle, not just John's section alone, the Marine Corps had managed to kill 2,500 Japanese soldiers, forcing them into a retreat. General Hayotake again had been defeated, and this time the blame laid squarely on his shoulders, and because of this, he commits, can't say that word on
self-deletion.
YouTube. Anyways, by the time reinforcements get to Basilone and his men, there is dead dudes absolutely everywhere. There's 38 of them in or around the foxhole. All of those kills were credited to Basilone in close quarters combat, and his fields of fire look like the most aerodynamic mass grave you've ever seen. There was so many they quit counting after 150. For the next 18 days, the Marines launched counterattacks, chasing the retreating Japanese forces all over Guadalcanal before eventually kicking them off the island altogether. But the fight's not over yet. The Japanese are going to come back, and they're going to come back with everything they absolutely have. Off the coast of Guadalcanal is a bunch of Japanese battleships, and they are there to secure a route for more Japanese soldiers to make it onto the beach through landing craft. But this time, the U.S. Navy is going to surprise them in the middle of the night. There's this crazy battleship commander by the name of Willis Lee, aka Ching Lee, a 5-time Olympic gold medalist sharpshooter and tactical genius that has just pioneered and perfected the method of using radar to find targets for naval gunfire, giving them an unprecedented advantage at night fighting. On the night of November...
Fantastic, because you know, when the lights go out, the Marines plan it.
October 14th, he engages the Japanese battleship detachment with his ship, the USS Washington, sinking their flagship, the IJN Kirishima. This forces the rest of the Japanese naval detachment to retreat, squashing any hope of Japanese reinforcements hitting the beach, effectively securing the island and turning the entire tide of the war in the Pacific. By January 1st,
This I've read about because he's part of the war bonds, and he hates it. He's home, but he hates it.
1943, John and the rest of the 7th Marines were sent to Melbourne, Australia to recover from months of intense combat. And once the Marines get there, it turns into one gigantic party because now the people of Australia have been living under the worry that the Japanese were going to invade them next. And now they're tucking their tail and they're running from the Marine Corps and the United States Navy. The Marines are heroes to every single person in Australia. The Australians were so grateful to the Marines, it said that there wasn't a single bar or home in Australia that wasn't open to a United States Marine. And they couldn't pay for one of their own drinks even if they wanted to. For an entire month, John Basilone is wearing his piss cutter sideways, absolutely hammered. And then one day he wakes up at like noon, probably still half drunk, feels like he's been hit by a truck, and his arm is just absolutely on fire. So he sits up out of bed, he looks over at his arm is just all bandaged up, and he has no idea why or what happened. And he
Probably got stung or bit by one of those Australian poisonous animals. Something of that nature.
He's like worried that he did something stupid. He jumped off a roof, broke his arm, something happened. He doesn't really know. Regardless of what happened or how hurt he is, he can't really do anything about it, and he's starving, and he can do something about that, so he doesn't even bother to look at his arm or see what's underneath that bandage. He just staggers out of the barracks and goes to the chow hall. So he's in the chow hall getting food, and another Marine comes up to him and is like, yeah, death or dishonor, right? And John Basilone's like,
Oh, that's right, tattoo. I gotta work on mine. I got this in 2008. But sadly, I lack the funds to really have more fun. So someday, just not today.
what? He goes, your tattoo that you got last night. Everybody was watching and cheering. And he's like, and he looks underneath the bandage, and he's now got a gigantic tattoo on his arm that says death or dishonor. Now at this point, John is like partially relieved that he's not severely injured, but on the other hand, he's like, man, I got so hammered I got a tattoo and didn't even know it. Maybe I should tone it down just a little bit.
Yeah, at 11, bring it down to a 9.5.
Which works out because by this point in time, the party's kind of dying down. The Marines go into this like recovery type mode. They're kind of like out in the woods, living in barracks and tents, and they're just kind of hanging out until they get more orders. So that's fine. That's great. That's wonderful. The only annoying thing that's really going on at this point in time is in Australia, there's this fucking bird that's got the most obnoxious call on the planet, and it's called a kookaburra.
Shoot it. I mean, no, we must. Yes, I'm a speciesist. There's certain animals I just don't like. But I mean, no, we must embrace all the wonderful animals around the world and not exterminate. Shoot it. Shoot it. Shoot it now.
John and the rest of the
Kill it.
Marines absolutely hate these birds because of how obnoxious they are, to the point that they start opening fire on
Good.
the birds whenever they hear them just to get them to shut the fuck up. At which point the chain of command is like, you guys need to stop. You can't keep shooting at these tiny birds with Browning machine guns, okay? Quit it. They didn't. They kept doing it, and then whenever the chain of command asked what they were doing, they would say they thought they saw a Japanese spy just to get these birds to be quiet. This
That's a reasonable excuse. Yeah, no. I thought I saw a Japanese spy. Yeah, I saw it too, Billy. Yeah, me too, Bob. Me too, Philip. I saw it. Yeah, if John said he saw a spy, well, gosh darn it, Captain, he saw a spy. And Marines don't lie, cheat, or steal.
This goes on for months, just hanging out in the woods, recovering, shooting at these annoying birds. And then by May, John finds out that he is going to be awarded the Medal of Honor for his actions on Guadalcanal. Initially, he is told that he's going to go back to the United States, and FDR himself is going to put the Medal of Honor around John's neck in front of his friends and family in his hometown. But John doesn't really feel like he deserves it, or he has feelings that there's other men that deserve it just as much as he does. He said, and I quote, I just happened to be there. Anyone would have done the same in my place. And because
He's right. He's a good man. But John, you were the guy to save the day. Simple as that. Not everybody can be John Basilone. It's a humble quote. I think he was thinking about his men, thinking about his fellow Marines.
of this, he feels like that Medal of Honor doesn't just belong to him, it also belongs to his
Yes.
men. So he actually opted to have the Medal of Honor ceremony in Australia on May 21st with his men present. And at this point, the Marine Corps realizes they have a unique opportunity. They've got John Basilone, this young, good-looking, 185-pound brick shithouse of a Marine that's got 19 knockouts in boxing and the Medal of Honor around his neck. And they ship him back home, and he's going to be doing war bond tours to raise money for the war. For the next month, John gets paraded around the United States with the goal of raising $15 billion in war bonds, and in less than 30 days, he raises $19 billion. And John Basilone hates absolutely every second of it. He did not want to leave his men, and he definitely does not want to get paraded around the United States giving talks and speeches. It reminds him of being in school, having to go up in front of the class, and he absolutely hates school. He just grits his teeth and bears through it, trying to do the right thing. And then eventually, after he raises all this money and the war bond tour is over, he asks to get shipped back out to rejoin his men. He is immediately denied. He's far too valuable. They cannot have the news headlines reading that war hero, Medal of Honor recipient John Basilone dies in combat, so they make him a guard at a naval shipyard.
This is the worst.
You know what? While I am a fan of The Office, a better clip would have been John Basilone as Michael Scott talking to Toby, you know, and Toby being, admin bureaucracy, and Michael Scott saying these infamous words to him. Why are you the way that you are? I hate so much of what you choose to be. That was a great quote. Like, why are you the way that you are?
This goes on for months and months, just John stuck inside of a guard shack, similar to that classroom that he hated as a child. And it's just eating away at him. He starts to become an alcoholic. It's just the loneliest he's ever been in his entire life, and he hates every single second of it. And then in November of 1944, he hears word that his old unit under the command of Chesty Puller is almost wiped out at the Battle of Peleliu. And this is the last straw for John Basilone. He's not going to sit in this guard shack anymore while his men are out there fighting and dying without him. He storms into General Vandergrift's office, the same man that pinned the Medal of Honor on his chest in Australia, and tells him the newspapers are going to read one of two things. They're going to read that you had to court-martial war hero John Basilone, or they're going to read that John Basilone is returning to the Pacific. You can pick which one. And then he says, and I quote, "How's it going to look if we retake Manila and Manila John isn't there? I'm staying with my boys. They need me."
You're frickin' A right. He's a warrior. Can't put him in the sidelines anymore. Can't do that to the man. Can't do that to him.
Within days, John is given orders to report to Camp Pendleton, where he is going to lead a machine gun platoon that's getting ready to ship out to the Pacific. But before that, he's given 3 days of leave to go back home to Raritan, New Jersey, and get his affairs in order. And while he is there, he has his third and final vision, and it is alarmingly clear to him that he is going to die in combat. Despite that, it doesn't even really faze him because he knows it's his destiny. He tells his brother that he had this vision. His brother doesn't quite believe him. He gets his affairs in order and he heads off to Camp Pendleton. While there, he meets Lena, a female Marine cook, falls in love with her, and they get married almost immediately, and they have 1 month together at Camp Pendleton.
Good relations with the Wookiees, I have.
After his month,
For those that know, they know. Very clever there, Fat Electrician. To which I have to say, touche, good sir, with the Wookiee quote. Touche indeed.
in Camp Pendleton with his new bride, he ships out to Hawaii, and he's got 4 months there to train his machine gun platoon to get ready for combat. While there, John does absolutely everything he can to get his men ready for combat. He shares everything he knows. He makes sure that they know that machine gun inside and out. When they do amphibious landings, if they're able to get that machine gun onto the beach up and running, he walks up and throws wet sand into the gun himself so that they get used to clearing malfunctions. After 4 months of training in Hawaii, they're told that they're shipping out and aboard this ship, and they don't even tell them where they're going yet again. Same thing happens again. A couple days out at sea, they announce over
Yeah, Marines say, hurry up and wait, hurry up and wait, hurry up and wait, hurry up and wait.
the loudspeakers that they are going to be taking part in the invasion of Iwo Jima, which translates to Sulphur Island. This is going to be nothing like anything John has ever experienced, or any other Marine for that matter. The entire island is not covered in jungles like all the other ones. Iwo Jima is just straight volcanic ash that looks like this.
I know what's going to happen. And I don't want to. I don't want to get to the end of this video. I want the story to be different. I want the timeline to be different. And if that's actual soil from Iwo Jima, oh my God. That's hallowed ground.
The reason they need this island is because it's the only island big enough and in the right place that they're going to be able to land the new B-24 bombers on top of, and those are going to be critical in winning the rest of the war. This invasion is going to be absolutely massive. It's the biggest amphibious invasion in United States Marine Corps history. Over 800 warships, 250,000 men, and 70,000 Marines. John and his men are going to be landing on Red Beach too, and as the first wave lands on Red Beach, nothing really happens. There's a little bit of enemy sniper fire here and there, but there wasn't artillery, there wasn't mortars. They weren't opening up on them with machine guns while they were in the Higgins boats, and as soon as they get on the beach, there's nothing there either. So the Marines just kind of lay down and get low, trying to not be an easy target for a sniper, and then the second wave lands, and then the third, and then John's on the beach with his men on Red Beach too, and he looks out and just sees clustered Marines laying along this beach on volcanic ash that you can't dig into.
No!
Oh fuck moment. and he realizes what's about
It's
to
a
happen.
trap.
The Japanese absolutely have every square inch of this beach sighted in with mortars and artillery, and there's pillboxes and bunkhouses off in the distance that are probably concealed and you just can't see them yet. Chuck Tatum, one of John Basilone's men, was laying down at the time, and he said that everybody had this feeling of like, maybe this is going to be an easy day. Maybe the Japanese got scared and they fled and retreated already out of the game. We've already won. And then he hears John Basilone start screaming, "Get the fuck up and start moving up the beach or you're gonna die," as he literally starts kicking Marines in the ass and dragging them up by their collars and ordering them to push forward. And as soon as that happens, the Japanese open up with mortars, artillery, and the pillboxes unconceal themselves and start mowing down Marines with machine gun fire. There's nothing he can do about the mortars or artillery, but maybe John can do something about these pillboxes and the machine gun fire. There's one big Japanese bunkhouse up ahead that's mowing down Marines with its machine gun. John orders his men to get their machine guns up and start returning fire into the window holes of this bunkhouse. Once his men start laying down suppressing fire, hopefully keeping the Japanese from manning their guns effectively, John goes, he finds a demolition guy and a flamethrower, and he orders them to walk right up the machine gun's field of fire, right next to the bullets whizzing past him. It seems sketchy, but is literally the safest place to be right now.
Look, I actually did a video on the flamethrower. Those guys, those Marines, both Army, Marine Corps, especially during World War II, with the flamethrower, the tank on their back, balls of steel. Oh, balls of steel.
As soon as the demo man and the flamethrower almost make it to the window on the bunkhouse, John steps over his gunner, unhooks the machine gun from the tripod, grabs it by the handle around the barrel, effectively known as a Basilone bail after this, yells at his man to grab the ammunition, and starts running up the beach as the demo man throws a satchel charge into the window and the flamethrower starts hitting all the windows with his flamethrower. John runs all the way up the beach. He runs up the hill that this bunkhouse is built into, and once he gets to the top of the hill, while holding the gun in his hands, he mows down all the Japanese running out the backside of the bunkhouse. At the top of the hill, John can see the airfield they need to take off in the distance, so he gets his machine gunner set up, gets the men that he has set up in a defensive position, and goes back down the beach to get the rest of his—
Don't go back, stay!
men, just like his mentor Chesty Puller would. He makes it back to the base of the beach, he gets all of his men, and they start making their way up the beach to secure this position. And then suddenly, John and 5 of his men are hit with a mortar, killing all of them. John Basilone is credited with saving dozens, if not hundreds of Marines with his actions on the beach that day. For this, he was nominated for a second Medal of Honor, but by this point in time, it had become common practice to never award the Medal of Honor twice. So he was posthumously awarded a Navy Cross and a Purple Heart, becoming one of the most decorated Marines of all time. And many of the Marines that he saved that day would go on to take Iwo Jima and ultimately win World War II. And that is the story of John Basilone, Manila John, the greatest machine gunner to ever live. Thank you for watching. Best way to support the channel is go buy some merch over at thefatelectrician.com. Whack bang out. I absolutely hate endings like that.
Give me the hand wave. Sergeant, can you tell us something about how you happened to get this medal? You must have mowed them down.
Yes, sir. I was in a good outfit with good men. I just happened to be there, and any man would have done the same in my place.
Spoken just like a Marine. Can you tell us, Sergeant, something about how you happened to get this Congressional Medal of Honor?
Yes, sir. I was in a good outfit with good men. I just happened to be there, and anyone would have done the same in my place.
Spoken just like a Marine. Sergeant, where does your old man come from?
My father comes from Naples.
Well, sometimes we get stories that do end like this, with the hero doesn't make it all the way to the end. And Basilone is clearly a legend. Somebody who not only cared about his Marines, but would fight and die for them to the very end. Just want to rewind something here real quick. Just want to say something here real quick. A direct statement to the Fat Electrician.
I'm just going to level with you. I've been making YouTube videos for about 3 years now, and during that time, I've gotten recommendations for hundreds of thousands of different topics to do videos on. Some of them I've done, some of them I haven't gotten around to yet, some of them I'll never do because they don't interest me, and then there's another category of topics that I've actively avoided because, to be honest with you, they intimidate me because the stories are that incredible, and I'm worried that I'm not going to do them justice. This is one of those.
You did him justice. That's what you did. You did this story justice. And on behalf of everyone, thank you for sharing this story. 10 out of 10. Epic video. Much appreciated. Everyone take good care of yourselves and each other. What more can I add that has been said already? Semper Fidelis, John. John Basilone. A Marine's Marine. And thank you, Fat Electrician.